Hey, it's Andrea Gribble here from hashtag Social School for EDU. Guess where I am? You can tell right away, right? And I've got my hashtag Cricket, Go Cricket water. And of course, I knew I would get a gift. I got a brand new t-shirt from Joe. We've got Joe Sanfelippo. Tell everybody hi.
How's everybody doing? Everybody good to go? We're having a lot of fun today.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. We are going to just, please, as you join us, jot in where you're from, and tell us hi. We definitely want to know where you're at today. And Joe's going to share a lot of things, and we'll actually answer your questions live as well. But I'm gonna do a little interview with Joe to begin with. So Joe, just tell us a little bit about yourself, I guess.
Well, hi everybody. So my name is Joe Sanfelippo. I'm the superintendent in Fall Creek, Wisconsin, home of the Fall Creek Crickets, of course. And this is my, holy cow, this is my 7th superintendent year and 8th year overall in the district. It's an incredible place. It's the best place. It's amazing. The things that are happening here are astounding. And the idea is that, and here's the thing about it though, and a lot of really cool things are happening all over the country, but nobody's really talking about them. It's our job to do that. But we moved into the district 7 years ago. I love it. Our teachers are like totally legit. They're phenomenal. And they just need stories to be told about them, which is essentially what we want to do across the board. So
yeah, just so you guys may or may not know, Joe actually is here in Fall Creek, Wisconsin, and I'm originally from New Auburn, Wisconsin, which is actually smaller than Fall Creek, which is amazing. But when I started my business 4 years ago, the first person I called up was Joe, and I said, Joe, can I come and talk to you about social media for your school and kind of find out? And of course, you welcomed me in with open arms, and I've learned so much. And so a lot of what we do and what we try to do. Hi, Oosberg is here. Oosberg in the house.
Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman. I know them, right? That's right. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
You are definitely right. And
great battles with Fall Creek back in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
With your
basketball.
Great sports teams.
Yeah, right.
But I got a lot of ideas from Joe. Joe, when did your kind of journey with social media begin in this district?
So in 2011, we got our Facebook page up in 2011, and it was the best thing. I think in a lot of times what we ended up, well, actually it started when I interviewed for the superintendent job here. And as I was in the interview for the superintendent job, I asked the board, like, what's your expectations of me? And one of them said, there's a lot of really great things happening here, but nobody knows about them. So I'm like, what? And I told him, because I had never been a superintendent before, I was like, I'll tell you this, I may not be the best superintendent you'll hire, but I am the loudest person on earth. So if there are that's right, if there are cool things going on here, they're going to know about them. And so that's when in 2011 we started the page. And then we just started kind of growing it. And then it turned into more connections with Twitter and more connections with Instagram and more connections with just more memorable moments for people. So it's been fun.
Right. And, my girls still wonder. I've got the 4 stepsons, 2 daughters. They're just like crickets.
Yeah, right?
But
Mighty crickets, thank you very much. Mighty crickets.
They're known around the world. Nick, thanks for joining us from La Crosse is here. And Ben's joining us from Nebraska.
Oh, I was just in Nebraska.
Yeah.
I was at NEDA. So the Ed Tech conference in Nebraska was fantastic. Incredible people in Nebraska. We had a great time. I was in Omaha, so that was fun. Awesome.
Well, he was just in your neck of the woods. If you ever want to get your group fired up, this guy is the guy. He's gotten to talk to so many out there. I know that a lot of people are on right now that are working on telling their story. And they might just be getting started. So you guys started a long time ago. What kind of advice can you give them as far as just, building that culture?
Mm-hmm. I think first it starts with the culture of storytelling. There's a lot of initiatives that in school districts, a lot of stories in school districts die before they exit the school because people are afraid of what their colleagues are going to say about them. So they're not going to tell a story because they think their colleagues are going to be like, well, why did you do that? Now I have to do that. And that's a lot more work for me. So I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do it. Right. So it's really kind of creating this culture of storytelling. And a lot of time what we tell people when we started this process was in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. So if they don't know what you do, then they make up what you do. So people still perceive schools as though something that happened 25 years ago happened yesterday. and that's not true. So what we tried to do was try to develop this culture where storytelling was the norm, and not just isolated to a couple of people in the organization. And I think the hashtag had a huge role in playing that, because when we started talking about storytelling, nobody really wanted to take over the district account. They all wanted to use their own account but use the hashtag, and I think that was a big deal because it made them feel more comfortable in that process. So when you get started, the biggest piece of advice that I can give people is just stay consistent in the message. And not really consistent, it's not even as much consistency in the message, but consistency in the engagement. And the more that you can do that, the better you're going to be, because now you know people are going to, be in that moment with you.
Yeah, definitely. And, Fall Creek in the middle of Wisconsin, everybody is following you guys on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can really build that culture. And if I ever want to know what's going on in Fall Creek, like you can right now, go on Twitter, do hashtag Go Crickets, and I forgot to take a selfie with you before we started this, but we'll do that. That's awesome. Just everybody joining in, make sure to introduce yourself in the chat, and then if you have questions that you want to ask Joe, we'll scroll through those and make sure that we ask them. But one of the things that I kind of advertised, you guys are continually just raising the bar as far as how you use social media. So can you share a few examples lately of some awesome things that you have done to tell your story?
Oh man! So I think the most important component is we haven't really changed a lot of what we do in terms of the message, but we've changed what we do in terms of the moments of the message. So we're trying to capture these moments as much as we can. With hiring season. So with hiring season, you want to create a moment for the candidate. So in doing that, a lot of times what we want to do is create the moment and then capture the moment and then send the moment out. So when it comes to telling stories at schools, I always think about it in the I, we, they, right? So I might start the process, we develop the process, and then they start telling the story for us. So if you start it with you, like you own the process, and then we collectively as a school start telling the story more, then if you do that well enough, then you don't have to tell a story anymore about the narrative of your school, because the people in the public, end up doing it for you. So let's say that we like last year we hired a teacher, and in hiring the teacher, we brought the teacher in and didn't tell the teacher that we were going to offer the teacher the job. So that the teacher comes in, we offer the job, because I always let the committee that's hiring the teacher offer the job. So the teacher gets offered the job, but not only did we offer the job to the teacher, but we recorded the offering, right? And so once we recorded the offering, then that teacher now has a documentation of them getting their first job, which is cool. But then we didn't tell what we didn't do is there was somebody in the committee that once she said yes, texted me, because I had a group of 15 or 20 students outside, and they didn't know that she said yes. But so then they walk into the building and then they offer her the job because they're going to be in her classroom next year. Yeah. So you do that and you record the whole thing. Then at that point you take that recording and you say to the candidate, do you mind if I send this to your parents? Because I think it'd be really cool if they got a chance to see their daughter get their first job. Right?
Right.
So then when you do that, and then you say to the candidate, you can do whatever you want with video. It's your video, do whatever you want. Where does that video end up? Ends up on Facebook all the time, right? So now you don't have to tell a story anymore because they're telling the story for you.
Right.
So the more moments that you can connect to them and then help them to push that narrative out, the better you're going to be, because a lot of times we spend so much time justifying the work that we do, which I have a huge problem with. Because we don't tell the story because we're afraid of what people are going to say with us telling the story. You're just bragging on this or that. If you can get other people to have that conversation, then you're not bragging on it. Now you're having other people do it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Ann from CISA 9. Obviously, Joe has a lot of expertise to share. So I just heard, because of social media, that you have a class that is selling something really interesting on the internet, right? Through the internet, or is it local?
Both.
So why don't you tell everybody kind of, because I love that, because it's teacher-driven, project work, right? So just tell them about that.
So we have a group of 7th grade. So our 7th grade kids are doing this. They've developed their own business essentially. So they're selling worms because that's what they wanted to sell. So they developed a business that sells worms, And so they develop, not only do they develop the business because their teachers allowed them to do that, but now they have a social media, they have social media accounts for all of for their business. They have a marketing team, they have a budget team, they have people that raise the worms, and then they have a sales team. They have all this stuff that's going on. These kids are in 7th grade, right? So we're talking about like 13-year-old kids that have their own business, and they sell stuff, and they use social, and they go on, they do Facebook Live, and they connect on Twitter, and they just put it all out there. And they're doing this because they're in an environment where their teachers are allowing them to really own that process. And so it's been really cool. So that was one thing. I mean, that was a big deal that they did. Yesterday we had a group of kids, or last week we had a group of kids that launched a hot air balloon 110,000 feet into the air, and they documented that whole process, and now everybody knows what they're doing because of it. So here's the thing about all that stuff, and it didn't really resonate with me until we started taking people to these conferences, right? So we got all of our Go Cricket stuff out. We start resonating with people across the country, and then we start taking our staff members to all these conferences. And when our staff members go to these conferences, they walk back and they tell their colleagues that they felt like rock stars, that they felt like they were so important because everybody knew who they were. And they knew who they were because of a hashtag. That's it. And because the stuff that they're doing is awesome, but that stuff is also being done across the country, just nobody's talking about it. Right. And so now people know who we are because of a cricket, man. And the fact that we're out there as much as we can. And I think that gives value to the people in this space because they know that the audience is bigger than them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And hashtags are so critical. Like, there's so many people out there, Joe, that still don't really understand that it's more than a skit in, Jimmy Fallon.
Right, which was a great
Justin
skit.
Timberlake. It was a great skit, but very, very powerful. So one action item, if you don't have a district-wide hashtag, you have to develop one. One of the kind of things that all of us are dealing with social media, there's a lot of great stuff that happens. You build a lot of capital in telling that story. But when things go wrong, and certainly all of us are feeling the effects. We serve 60 schools across the country, and just think if each school only had one type of crisis a month, we're dealing with it like once a week. And so social media is obviously there to get the good word out, but I know you've dealt with a couple challenging situations where social media has played a big role in communicating with your environment or with your community. Can you just talk a little bit about that, the importance of that it's played?
Yeah, one of the biggest components of social media in general for us is that it's not a one-way street. You can, if you're only talking to people when you need something, then you're totally missing out on the conversation. So if you're only talking to people and you make a mistake when you're putting this stuff out, they're going to roast you because they're thinking, why are we paying this guy all this money? You can't even spell this right or do this right or whatever the case may be. But they give you develop so much social capital if you're always in that conversation. And sometimes it's really about making sure that there's some consistency to that conversation and being in that moment, so when something does happen, you're able to go out and kind of rectify that situation through social media. And I think a lot of times, if it's I think about the referendum a lot, because a lot of times with what school districts will do, they'll start their social media presence prior to a referendum, and then the community is like, well, you're only talking to us because you want us to vote for this referendum. When we had both of our referendums that both passed, our social media presence has gone down, and that was done intentionally during the time leading up to the vote, because we didn't want anybody to say, you're only talking to us to get your vote. And because that's not who we are. So if somebody says that, we can unequivocally say, well, here are the number of posts that we've done over the last couple months as opposed to the months prior. And I think that's important to note, because it gives us more of a sense of, we're in this for the conversation, not just to get something out of it. And that develops the social capital. And the more social capital you have, when something goes wrong, you're much less likely to bounce back really quickly because you're developing these conversations on a regular basis.
Right. And so many proponents of your, like you talked about, engaging the community, listening, being a part of the conversation. Social media isn't just about pushing stuff out, but it's when people start talking about how awesome your district is. And I can see it from wherever I'm at. That's really powerful. So we're going to be on for a few more minutes. Please, if you've got questions for Joe, jot them in the comments, because we want to make sure to answer those. Joe, you have great students here, and I know you've had a couple viral type posts. I've just got to plug this in because one of our districts is I think probably hitting 1 million.
Oh my gosh! Is it the Cumberland one from yesterday?
Yes. So
the Cumberland prank, the senior prank, and I don't even want to say it out loud because we still got one more days with senior. But oh my gosh, the Cumberland senior prank was legit, like totally legit.
yeah, so I'll post the link to that down below after this interview. But they put duct tape. It looked like they crashed through the wall, but they didn't, and it had a great message about distracted driving and but seriously, biggest hit ever for one of our schools. And again, it's not about us; it's about the story, and it's about these cool things that kids are doing that don't. Wreck the school, like pranks. I heard somebody that there's a lot of negative things that can happen with pranks. So Stephanie's asking, how did you get administrators to start to share?
Yeah, I think part of it was just making sure that they understood that I don't have any more time than anybody else does, and what I do is I trade my time because. When it comes down to it, like there's just so much time in the day. And when I got to Fall Creek, I was always answering questions. I answered like the same question 5 or 6 times from parents, right? And now, if I get 5 or 6 calls a week, something happened. So I think we have to understand that when you talk to administrators, it's not about creating like piling stuff on top. It's actually like almost reducing the amount of time that they have to answer the same question. So. And we talk a lot about, when I talk to administrators across the country, a lot of times it's not even about are we telling our district story, it's also about telling your principal story. Because, we talk about schools in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. It's the same thing with a principal. If they think that you move papers from one side of the desk to the other on a daily basis, then that's what you do, unless you can prove them different. And so our job is to make sure that they're getting the real story of who we are administratively too.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any kind of a requirement for them when
No, and I honestly, I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that if you want to use it, great. If you want to learn how to use it, great. If you don't. And we can run everything. Like I said, we've asked students, we've asked for student interns every year since I've been here. And we've asked for people to take over the district account. Nobody wants to because they want to use their own account and use the hashtag. And I think a lot of it from a kid perspective is they want to use their own account with the hashtag because they want credit for the likes and the tweets and everything that goes along with it. Totally fine. As long as the message is getting out, then that's what we want to do. And if the kids understand that there's a way to get their message out in a productive manner, then they're going to do that.
Yeah. So somebody had asked who owns the hashtags Go Crickets account. You have a Fall Creek School District account, but really the storytelling is done by everybody. In Fall Creek.
Yeah, and nobody really owns the hashtag, and I think a part of it is that's just a file folder for where you're at. But so and we have our screens. We have 5. We have 5 50-inch screens that stream our Go Crickets feed live, which is could be terrifying if people want to use it in the wrong capacity. But it also gives our older kids knowledge that our younger kids can see that on a regular basis. So if they're tight about wanting to say something about the school and hashtag it with Go Crickets, sometimes they'll think twice about it because they know that there's a 5-year-old that can see it.
Right. And I shared a blog about all those screens with some the requirements of those. So I'll make sure to jot the blog link down below so that you have that. We've got a ton of Go Crickets. Can you talk a little bit just about all the branding that happens here?
Yeah. So part of the branding thing is and when it comes to the work that we try to do when it comes to branding, I think a lot of people think that if you throw a hashtag and a logo on a t-shirt that you've branded your school district and that's it. Your brand is essentially what people say about you when you're not there. That's all it is. So you want to have a constant presence in terms of what's happening across your space. So when you're not around to tell your story, somebody else will tell it in a good capacity. And we want people to talk about us in a way that reflects well upon the work that our incredible teachers are doing. And we can't always be in their space. So the idea has to be, how can we make sure that they're always thinking about the work that happens? And when it comes to brand promise and brand experience, if what happens in the school isn't what's actually happening in the school, you've got a big problem. But the idea is that we want to have a presence on a regular basis. So we'll do things like, we'll think about when we're going to post, which is, you can look at the analytics to see that, but we also dive deeper into that piece and say, when do we know that our people are going to be on social media so we can get into their living rooms or into their phone or whatever. And one of the biggest times is we know during the fall, like from 12 to 3 on a Sunday, we know everybody in Wisconsin is watching a Packer game. And so what happens when that Packer game goes to commercial? Well, everybody goes to their phone. So if you're on your phone, you retweet stuff that's happening on Twitter. You don't have to create new content. Just retweet stuff during Packer game commercials. That's the first thing that they're going to see when they go to their phone instead of, whatever. So we want to be really intentional about that work, because if we can live in the space that they live in, then we're much more likely to live in the space when they're not there, because they'll check us out and see what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder, if you've got questions for Joe, we'll ask them. One of my favorite videos from you from this year, there's a lot that we could share, like all the videos, but one unique thing that you do each year is you take the role of somebody on your staff, or maybe a couple people.
Yeah, like 4.
Okay, 4. So I'll share where you took over for the janitor, which is hilarious. But can you just describe that? Because I think that's something that is so powerful, says so much about you as a leader and your school. But just kind of describe that.
So what we do is we give 4 personal days away a year, and so what'll happen is we'll pull the name out of a hat, and then the administrative team will take over their job for the day. So this year we were a library media specialist. I taught English and gosh, what else did I teach? I taught tech ed, and was the custodian. So the custodian one was fantastic because we have an amazing group, and Shirley, who I took over for, does just a phenomenal job. And so just valuing her time was really important. But there was a couple things that were really important about that process, when it came to not only doing the job, that's great and everything, but we absolutely used it as a marketing opportunity for us to talk about the great work that she does, and the idea that not only within the video we talk about the idea that I don't know how long this is going to take me because she's much better at this than I am. I don't think it's going to be as clean as it normally is because she's much better at this than I am. Right. But at the same time, I'm wearing this shirt the whole time, and I have a lot of shirts. Like I could wear any shirt, but not only did we did the video with the shirt, but also the video was, if you look at the video, it's 59 seconds, and it's 59 seconds so we can share it on all of our platforms. And that's a big deal, because if you can share it on all of your platforms and talk about the great work that's happening, at least you're in the spaces that multiple platforms, because multiple different people use different platforms. So we wanted to make sure that it could be shared across all platforms without having to go to 5 links or download or whatever. So it worked out. Yeah,
that was awesome. So I guess to wrap up, Joe, there's a lot of ways that people can connect with you. And maybe you can just share a couple of those, and we'll make sure to put all those down in the links. And if you're still watching and have one more question, make sure to jot that in the comments below. But tell us a little bit about what you're up to and how we can connect.
Well, I think just keep looking for the whole Go Crickets hashtag stuff, because a lot of the work that we try to do, honestly, it's all built around the fact that our teachers are doing amazing things and our kids are doing like ridiculous stuff. And so a lot of times I want people to connect to me through the work that they do, because it's their story. I'm just really super loud. That's it. So if you check us out, if you want to find, it's at Joe_Sanfelippo on Twitter. You can go check that out if you want. But more importantly, check out what these amazing teachers are doing and these amazing kids are doing on a regular basis, because it's nothing short of astounding, the fact that we take kids, we get kids, and our job is to move them, like move them academically, move them emotionally, and our people do it. Like they do it all the time. So it's cool to be able to do that. So check out the Go Crickets hashtag, respond to our people, connect with our people. They're the ones that are doing the work. I'm just really loud.
He is really loud. He does have a few books. Hacking Leadership is the newest book that's out there. That's amazing. Quick read, really applicable. And Joe goes around the country and speaks to teachers, and doesn't want to talk about that himself, but he's obviously impacted me. He's impacted all of you, and just impact thousands of people to be able to give their voice. And so we'll definitely just put a link. You can look at him on Twitter. He's got some information on his website as well. Janet says, how did the winners of the personal day get chosen?
Oh, we just took them out of a hat. So everybody's name, doesn't matter what your job was here. The only one that I couldn't do is bus driver, but then we got him a sub for that day. But everybody's name goes into a hat, and then we pull that. Actually, that's not true. Everybody is assigned a number, and then we put the number in a hat, and then I have a student pick a number, and then we decide who that number goes to a certain person, and then we videotape those too, and we put those out on our social feeds too, so they know who won.
Okay, that's awesome. Awesome idea. Great award for your teachers. Any last parting wisdom for us?
I got to tell you, like I think about the fact that we talked literally 4 years ago, and what your journey has looked like, and the idea that you have an opportunity to help so many people is really cool. I'm honored to be just part of this journey, honestly. So just keep crushing it, man. It's fun to watch you grow. And
we do have an awesome opportunity. Our online summer camp is coming up. Joe was one of the featured speakers last year. He's going to be on vacation this year, so he's not on the agenda. But we have got 6 awesome speakers on June 26th and June 27th. I'm going to throw the link down below. 2 days to really focus on social media for this next year. Maybe you're going to want to throw in the personal days. Maybe you're going to want to think about how are you hiring and how can you make that part of your story. Think how cool that is in regards to getting a job and getting recognized right away. How welcome do those people feel? And you give them some, like when they come, give them swag, take their picture in front of this, which is very affordable, like $100 you can buy this and get the brand out there. That's awesome. So thank you so much. Doug has one quick question about, do you have staff that help with social media?
Yeah, we do. There's 2 groups. There's like we feel like there's a difference between information giving and storytelling. So a lot of information giving is done by the secretarial staff, and the storytelling is more done by everybody in the district. So, like I said, we've offered every year for somebody to take hold of the district account, and everybody wants to do their own thing, which is totally fine.
Right.
So,
and especially when you're using Twitter, it's all building around that hashtag, and then you've got, I bet right now we could look in the last hour, we've got several stories that are happening from Little Fall Creek. And we know it's the end of the year. There's a lot of things to capture. So we just thank you, everybody out there, for your commitment for telling these stories. We know it's not an easy job, but it's so worth it. You guys are making such a big difference, and we appreciate you tuning in. So
have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Hashtag Go Crickets.